I still can't believe what I just heard, because listening to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce on that podcast felt less like tuning into an interview and more like eavesdropping on two people hopelessly in love. And it shook me in the best way, because there was no script, no performance, just raw affection spilling into every sentence, every laugh, every pause where one of them seemed to blush through the microphone. And as I replayed it in my head, I kept Heart squeezed tighter from Travis calling Taylor the greatest songwriter of all time, without hesitation, to Taylor teasing him in that flirty, self-aware way only she can, brushing off the compliment as though it were nothing, while clearly melting inside because it came from him, and then turning the entire exchange into a joke about says her boyfriend, which only made the whole thing cuter, because you could literally hear her smile in her voice, hear her smile in her voice, hear the candle Ricardo Sano Oka, hear the real, because rarely hear the real actually has herself bask in being loved so openly. And what struck me most was how Travis didn't retreat when she teased, didn't turn shy or backpedal like most men might in that situation, but doubled down with this unwavering belief in her artistry, insisting that it wasn't just him, that people everywhere, countless people, truly saw her as the greatest songwriter alive, and the pride in his tone was so pure that it felt like the kind of validation wants the world to see you too, and the way she giggled back was proof that his words were landing somewhere deep. Then Taylor turned the tables, describing Travis in ways that were almost cinematic, calling him a human exclamation point, a vibe booster, someone who takes even the dimmest moments and lights them up with color, like hitting the enhance button on a photo. And I swear you could hear Travis grin when she said it, because even though he's this towering athlete, confident and powerful, when it comes to her, he turns into a boy who can't quite believe. First compliment he's ever been given, and when she talked about how he never judged her for knowing nothing about football, how he was patient and sweet and made learning about his world feel fun instead of intimidating, it struck me that this is what real love looks like. The blending of lives without condescension, the joy of discovery rather than the pressure of expectation. But then came the part that really sealed it for me, when Taylor tried to claim she wasn't an athlete, dismissing herself with that humility she always carries, and Travis snapped back instantly with such fire in his voice. Don't say that. Don't you dare say that. Like it genuinely pained him to hear her minimize herself. And then he went into this passionate defense of her athleticism, citing her power skip on tour as if it were proof it, in heels, commanding stadiums and sprinting across the stage, was the kind of athleticism most people could only dream of. And the sheer detail in his praise showed just how closely he pays attention, how deeply he studies her the way she studies lyrics, because love makes you a fan first, and you could hear in his voice that he's her biggest fan in the world. Taylor's laugh at his outrage was so soft, so disbelieving, but grateful, and then she called him crazy in the best way, admitting that yes, he's wild, bold enough to shoot his shot on a podcast, but he's the right kind of crazy, the good kind that makes life fun, the kind that makes her laugh about ordinary things and feel safe at the same time. And she explained that she knew early on he wasn't truly unhinged, but simply fearless, which to her was only truly unhinged, but simply fearless, which to her was truly like callous, like a million chocolate, and now where I got, which to her was the Lewis. Reminded me of every romantic comedy moment where the grand gesture works because it's backed by sincerity. Their banter kept weaving between silly and profound, and when Travis talked about how proud he was of her competitiveness, how much he loved her genuine excitement to learn about football, and how she went from not knowing a first down to screaming about draft picks in his hallway, I realized this wasn't just playful flirting. It was admiration, deep respect for her mind and her spirit, and when he called her Tay in that casual a feli, nicknames like that are never just syllables, they're shorthand for intimacy. And Taylor, always the storyteller, compared the way Travis came into her life to a John Hughes movie, like he was outside her window with a boombox begging for a chance. And the way she said it made me picture her as the heroine she's always written about in her songs, finally living the very fantasy she's been spinning into lyrics since she was a teenager, admitting out loud that he gave her the story she once dreamed of. And it felt so surreal. Real life unfolding in front of us. Travis, for his part, leaned fully into the romance, declaring not once, but twice that he was the luckiest man in the world. And you could tell he wasn't just saying it for effect, because his voice caught slightly, because he said it once while talking about her being with him when he got his music back, and again while laughing about her sourdough obsession, as if her baking was just as magical to him as her stadium shows, and that kind of. Domestic as much as the extraordinary is what makes this love so believable. Taylor matched his vulnerability with her own, saying he made her so much better, confessing that everything about him, from his non-judgmental patience to his humor, lifted her higher, and he shot it right back, saying the same about her, that she made him better. And for a moment, the podcast stopped being content and turned into a vow, a mutual recognition that they had become mirrors for each other's growth. And then they spiraled into this hilarious but tender tangent about sourdough, trading jokes about chest hair and cat hair in loaves, bragging about whose bread rose higher, laughing about their matching stations like two kids building forts together. And it was so absurdly domestic that I had to remind myself these were two of the most famous people in the world, because in that moment they sounded like any couple teasing each other about kitchen mishaps. Your large kitchen mishaps. Lean the fall and little bit article. What's so hips? Because in that moment they sounded like any couple teasing each other about kitchen mishaps. Water and love. But then Travis went and said the line that will haunt me forever, describing how when he first got Taylor in a room, it felt like he had known her forever, like the conversation was the easiest he'd ever had, and not meeting her after being mesmerized by her stage presence was like discovering that the legend and the person were equally real, equally breathtaking, and it knocked his socks off. And I swear the sincerity in his voice could have me. In his voice could have me. It wasn't for show. It was a man trying to explain the unexplainable, how someone can feel like both a dream and a home at the same time.